I woke up in the middle of the night last night, and the moon was big and white in my window. It was really beautiful. And this full moon day in May, the Vesak day in the Buddhist tradition, brings together several myths under one holiday. That the Buddha was born on the full moon day in May, that he achieved awakening on the full moon day in May, and that he died or, final nibbana in the full moon day in May. The interesting things about that story for me, and I'm going to share with you in a way that I hope you could feel some interest, is that this was a person who was born and who awakened, and who died. The key word in that sentence is a person, a human being. I've spent a lot of time frustrated in my own practice by taking refuge and not knowing really what the center of it was in how I felt in that moment. Like, why am I really doing this other than, I certainly respect the person, the tradition, the teachings, and so on, but really, what does it feel like? And that's what I want to address. So that's taking refuge in the Buddha is a Vesak day kind of center point. And there are different ways people think about taking refuge in the Buddha. And it's my sense that they're all valid. It's a matter of what's a doorway for each person, something that, that they can feel close enough in their body, in their emotions, in their mind states, that it makes a difference, that it is something that provides a sense of either guidance or protection or inspiration. And one way, that this taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is framed is to take refuge in the Buddha is to take refuge in a kind of a god-like figure, even though he was, reputed to have been born of, that he was like a prince. He wasn't a prince, as far as we could tell. He was the son of a tribal elder, a significant person in the Sakyans. Another way to think of the Buddha or rather taking refuge in the Buddha, is to take refuge in awakening. So you look at what the Buddha actually came to in his own life, his own insights, but then you say, oh, that's where I'm taking refuge. And there's something good there, right? If you can tap into what, in any given moment, what does it feel like to bring awakening to mind and have a sense of freedom or a sense of lightness or a sense of non-clinging. Say, okay. But it can also be sometimes maybe a little bit abstract. And you can say, okay, I take refuge in all of the Buddhas. And there's a strong canonical basis for there having been multiple Buddhas, no problem. But then you're taking what is refuge in the possibility of there being a Buddha, or that there were many Buddhas and that's really great, or I'm not sure what you're taking refuge in. I'm not sure what you're feeling. You know what I mean? What are you being inspired by there? All of these, to me, have relevance, and it's a matter of what touches people's hearts. Some, of course, it could be refuge in the Buddha, can be like you're not sure what it is, but you're bowing to a Buddha Rupa, to a statue. And for a devotional heart, a devotional mind, this is enough. And frankly, I not only honor that, I'm a little bit jealous. I wish it were that simple for me to just, I do bow to a Buddha statue, when I enter a meditation hall and so on. And every morning when I practice, there's one nearby, and that's part of my beginning. But the kind of the ease that with which there's a fullness of that devotional sense, I give myself to this. And I'm not thinking it through or anything, but it's just, I feel it. It's part of my tradition. I was raised this way, or I had some experience that opened that doorway for me. Beautiful. But maybe it's the rational Westerner in me, or just someone who wasn't born with that strong a tradition, in this direction. Um, a lot of these, like the gods or the lineage of many Buddhas or the statue, they're just not as available to me. But the human being, that I can understand. I can feel that. And I actually, I've done some work even to feel that. I've read the suttas many times actually, and as I'm reading them and absorbing them day after day, year after year, I get a sense of, oh, wow, this was a person, this was a human being. I begin to see right in the discourses, oh no, Ananda, you give the talk. I've got a sore back today. I love that. It wasn't a transcendent teaching, it was a very imminent teaching. I am human. The Buddha is a human being. Or even when he was attacked by his cousin Ananda, who was in just burning, raging with jealousy at the Buddha's success, and rolled a boulder down the hill. The boulder cracked, a shard of stone cut into the Buddha's foot, and he bled. And it was intense pain. And one of the comments was, wow, look at how he's handling that pain. Isn't that amazing? Just, he basically could establish, and this I fully believe, jhana at any time. And, unlike me, deal with any pain that came up with complete kind of body-mind non-disturbance. Stunning, really. But he bled. Sorry to be so blunt, but this is what I'm, like part of what I'm trying to invite you into. He was sleeping under on the ground. I think he might have even been out in the open because there weren't any trees around. And he was just a little bit off the road. And someone comes up and says, why don't you come over here? There's more leaves on the ground and, it's a little more protected. I sleep well anywhere. But you get a sense of a human being with a body sleeping on the ground. The famous scene where he's approaching death. And he's, Ananda saying, oh, why don't you hang around a little more, offer some more teachings? And he said, you know, Ananda, this body it's like it's being held together by straps. And wow, I have felt that. I can relate to that, especially as I get older. He wasn't complaining. He was saying, the body is done. It's not a big deal. But you, Ananda, and all you folks out there who might want me to do more stuff, this body won't do anymore. This human body, just like your body, just like my body, won't do anymore. I can feel that. And when I reflect on what it means for the Buddha to be a human being, just like you, sitting here listening to me now, and awakening, that not only gets interesting, that becomes to me remarkable. My sense now of what awakening means, with my deep respect for the entanglement of my body mind, and that, wow, this third noble truth, the possibility of freedom of a very deep sort in this very life, that now goes, it's no longer mythological to me, and it's deeply inspiring. And it was not that this human being, the Sakyan sage, Sakyamuni, Gotama, who was a bodhisattva, he was just, on the path, and, became a Buddha. And you see throughout the discourses, occasionally says, back when I was just a bodhisattva, before I was awakened, before I was a Buddha, and then he'll go on with the teaching. And it'll be something like you and I would deal with. I had a lot of distracting thoughts, so I said, let me try this. Or I had lust. Oh, let me try this. And it's like, oh, he actually dealt with this stuff? He's dealt with what I'm dealing with? And the answer there is an absolute, for certain, yes. That fits my Western, sensibilities for sure, my modern sensibilities, but it's also so much in all of the suttas, the discourses, that no one would say, no, he didn't deal with that stuff. He had a son. He must have had sex to have a son. No one wants to say that or look at that, but that's a very human thing to do, don't you think? And when he died, when the body finally gave way completely, they cremated it and it burned up, just like your body would, just like my body would. So when we talk about the fact of dukkha, of suffering in this life, the Buddha was not talking about some abstraction. He was pointing towards the same suffering that you feel, that I feel, in our various ways. The fact that we may have contributing to our suffering the clinging and fear and longing that comes up with or is amplified with by things like the internet or automobiles and now the climate crisis, same dukkha, same basic mechanisms. The kinds of longings, urgings, yearnings, cravings that the Buddha spoke about was what we experience, what I experience when I feel lonely or sad or angry. When I find myself, wanting some sort of sensory pleasure, if nothing else, for a distraction from all of the difficulties in my life. Oh, it's time for a whatever, hot fudge sundae. I don't care what it is. It's like, oh, give me that so I don't have to, so I can have a moment off from my other stuff. He may not have had hot fudge sundaes, but, some sort of rice milk concoction with herbs, I don't know. Same process, though, of the mind, the heart yearning for stability, safety, protection, company, love, being seen, and the same bodily pains. Mosquitoes, snakes, bad smells, difficult relatives. I told you about his cousin. He had difficulties with his father. Oh, Dad. His dad wanted him to be in the family business. His dad wanted him to, stay with the Sakyan tribe and kind of be in an honored position. And his dad was pretty not happy that his son went off and wandered as a beggar. Oh. My dad was unhappy enough when I wanted to just go be a musician. I wasn't even talking about begging. So the complexity, the stickiness of the longings that you and I feel, the complications of those longings in our lives. He had it all. And he confronted this at the root. When you meditate and the mind gets sufficiently still and stable, and awareness, even though the mind is very still, awareness is very bright, strong, you might say perceptive, and you see the underlayer of grasping and holding and longing and wanting. You say, okay, that's never going to satisfy, because you see in that moment the complete rising and vanishing, the rising and falling of all things, the depth of impermanence, all the way down to the structure of the universe. You see it. The mind is never stable. And you see that directly. And you say, it's not possible to satisfy this thing, this body mind. It's not possible. So, like, that depth of insight is, the beginning. It's what begins this cascade of understandings that we call awakening. It's not just a intellectual process. Oh, I get it now. You've read enough books. You know this stuff. So how come, you still suffer? How come I still suffer? Because underneath these processes are still going on. Something in the body-mind is holding on. Something in the body-mind was holding on for the Buddha, the human being, for the Bodhisattva before, right? Before that transformation. And it was the same nature of holding on that you and I experience daily, that we may or may not see, right? That depends on mindfulness and samadhi or concentration and how we live our lives and so on. But it's there. And it's that joins us in our humanity. You and I are joined, and we're joined with the Buddha in his humanity. So I don't know about you, but when I reflect on this, I feel a profound, like an awe, a kind of respect that I don't even know the words for. That level of freedom and letting go could be discovered and realized. Oh my God. And I can feel that awe, I can feel that respect because I'm touching, like in myself, the truth of the grasping of the moment by moment that this organism does to try and get by, to try and stabilize, to try and have a decent life, to try to not have pain and so on. This connects me directly with the human being that we're calling the Buddha, as well as I said, connects me with you, connects us together. So when the Buddha spoke of, his teachings, he was speaking as a human being, although now an awakened human being, and I will absolutely grant that that's a special thing, right? That's like a remarkable, and how unusual, I don't know that I want to weigh in on how many people are awakened now and this kind of thing. It's a big conversation. But I will say that that's a remarkable, one of my teachers, Venerable Punaji Mahatera, would refer to him as like a superhuman. Same, right? Same humanity, but just having realized this capacity, wow, that's really something. And his teaching then, as I was saying, is like, this is what I see from this clear uh, uh, capacity that comes from my insights and my letting go. And, I have this sense, and this is the way I talk about it, is like, it's like his uh, ability to just look around and see things from this awakened state is what enabled him to just keep naming, offering these teachings that were so incisive. It wasn't that he was constantly like pondering it or anything like that. This was just seeing natural law at work because he wasn't clouded. It's like that basic. And so that's why I talk about all these teachings are practices. If we go and look at this stuff, maybe we can, move our minds, move our hearts in that direction and say, is this true? Is this true? Ehipassiko, go and see for yourself. That's what he kept saying, because he was seeing directly. Water flows downhill. The log on the Ganges River flows out to sea. This is the way he talked. When the cow that the shepherd is tending has flies' eggs in his eyes, you have to pick out the flies' eggs. And thereby the cow will be in better shape. Very cause and effect, because this is a human being in this actual world providing a quality of guidance informed by this direct seeing. Very different for me. from abstract notion of a God or an abstract notion of awakening. It's now feeling like something that is awe-inspiring and yet possible, real. A human capacity, my human capacity, your human capacity. I see you, I see every one of you on this screen, and I say, without any doubt, your capacity. I have not a shred of doubt about that. Vesak Day, then, for me, easily comes into focus as a time to reflect on this human being, and I come back to who was born, lived this life, awakened, continued living this life, and died. I am born, you are born. As far as I can tell, you have a body. Right now, you're mostly just heads, but I'm sure there's something connected there. And whether or not you believe me, you will die. When you die, before you die, the body will in some way or another decay. You will experience all that stuff, and that's okay. This whole human condition is exactly where we do our work. And to me, that's the message of Vesak Day. Refuge in the Buddha, refuge in the Dhamma, which is these teachings that came immediately out of direct experience. Natural law is usually how I like to translate Dhamma, just the way things are. And Sangha is exactly us together in that, and those who have given their lives, some people would call them spiritual professionals. These are people who have full time, right? And it's like the refuge across all of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is this sense of humanity and natural law. And of course, the fact is that as human beings, deep down and completely in ourselves, we are relational. And together, this profound challenge and possibility of awakening becomes possible. Separated, alone, the Buddha was very clear, it's not possible. So this is good work we're doing, even being here today. Vesak Day is to bring us together in this very reflection. So, how about we take, if it's okay with Eugene, maybe a short practice? Would that be okay? Groups of 2? Thanks. So I'll offer you a contemplation, and whether or not you yourself have experience with inside dialogue, really it's good enough if you maybe just pause before you speak and while you're listening and touch into any sense of refuge or of reverence, inspiration. And as your contemplation, do you sense your own humanity? Like right now as I'm speaking, feeling your body on the chair. Feel your mind receiving these words. That's your humanity. Your potential, your vulnerability. Do you feel that? Does it connect you with the Buddha? No taking turns. We'll have about, let's say, 12 minutes of practice, and then we'll join together. And I'll just say, I notice someone's leaving. Thanks for letting us know. If you don't want to practice, maybe it's best to leave the call now. Right, Jean? Yeah, leave the call now so that someone doesn't get stuck with no partner. So it'd be 12 minutes of practice, no taking turns, and this contemplation. Do you sense your humanity? Does it connect you? Can it inspire you through this connection to the human being that we refer to as the Buddha, the awakened one? And then we'll come back together in 12 minutes. As we draw to a close, I want to really touch into the, the recollection that Vesak Day invites us to, this full moon day in May, of it's a call to honor our capacity, but also to honor the power of community. Holidays like this are shared processes. If you're just doing it on your own, there's some value, but it's not the same. And when we reflect on just the simple fact that all of us have the time, the safety, the technology, the shelter to be here today, we can have some sense of the privilege. We can devote ourselves to using that privilege well, and to remembering that there are a lot of people who do not have safety. They do not have food. They do not have shelter. Lord knows they don't have this technology. And that our hearts are open to them, and we wish for our time together to, in any way possible, be of service to alleviating not only our suffering, but theirs as well, all beings. And even the beings who do have money, maybe lots of money and lots of shelter and lots of food, but they don't have teachings. And so they're just running in circles. To touch that suffering too, the suffering of the privileged as well, is deep. And may they too be free. May they too find safety, deeper safety, true safety. May all beings share in the merits of our practice without exception. May there be peace. May there be peace. May there be